Corruption adversely affects each and every sector
any
of the
sort of
country.
ideology. This is a great location for Nepal to explore its potential.
Namaste. Welcome to Youth TV Show Season 7. In today's episode, we are featuring Nepal's top 7 debaters produced by Leadership Academy. The topic for the final round of Category 5, Grade 10, 11 and 12 English language is Asia's next superpower, China or India. Our judges for today's final round are Mr. Santosh Shah. He is the president of Leadership Academy. Mr. Tenzing Sonam. He is a founder of EduLift. And Ms. Sabrina Singh. She works with Daitwa and Nepal Leadership Academy. We will now begin with our debate. May I request Prapti Adhikari to come up on the stage. She will speak in support of China.
Which country has grown immensely without reliability to other nations? China. Which country is one of the main reasons behind Easternization and transfer of global distribution of powers? China again. Which Asian country is seen to be the most promising as a whole? China again. A superpower is defined as a country that has the capacity to distribute power and influence. And since China has an economic, political, and social framework that can provide as a blueprint for other Asian nations to emulate, and when we look at its massive workforce and when we look at its absolutely booming economy, massive workforce, and its advances in politics and international policies, there is no question that China has already achieved some sort of superpower status. Now let us consider some of the things that a country needs in order to be considered a superpower, and let us see how China has been meeting those criteria. Military. With more than 2.3 million active troops, the People's Liberation Army is one of the largest standing military in the world and is a possible military superpowers. Economy. There's no doubt that China is one of the biggest economic superpowers in the world. With 7 to 10% of annual growth rate, which is an unprecedented number in the experience of world economy, China's economic spread continues to grow. Nuclear weapons. China is soon rising as a country, as a nuclear power country, and it surpasses other nations with respect to its large number of nuclear weapons. Population. Although China has the largest population in the world, along with having the largest population in the world, Chinese population is composed of well-educated and healthy people, 65.6% of whom lie between the age group of 15 to 59 years. Perhaps the best indication of how much of a superpower China is would be to compare it against the current global superpower USA. As of 2017, China's nominal GDP is ranked second, and USA continues to be. Thank you.
May I request Esther and Dhakal to come up on the stage? She will speak in support of India.
Before I would like to start my speech, I would like to define what a superpower country is. A superpower country is a country that has the capacity to project dominating power and influence in any place in the world, and sometimes in more than one region of the globe at a time. Now I'd like to tell you the major factors that makes India the next superpower of Asia. First of all, economically. The economy of India has been expanding rapidly. In 2015, India became the world's most fast-growing economy with a 7.3 GDP growth rate. And according to the economists and researchers of Harvard University, this 7% of annual growth rate would continue to put India ahead of China and making it the fastest economically growing country in the world. Second, I would like to tell you the depth of these countries, China and India. As of this morning, in status quo, the debt of China, according to national debt clock, is 92.60%, and the debt of India is 46.20%. With the difference of these two numbers, we can clearly see that which country has the capacity and is deserving to be the next superpower of Asia. Next, in Africa, India has a lot of markets which obviously boosts the economy of the country, as well as the military. The military of India is the fourth largest and most powerful military in the world. India has its economy, it has its military. What else does it need? Its youth. India has a high number of youth in its country. 50% of its population is under the age of 24. This provides a large workforce for the country, which can last for decades. The government is training a workforce of 400 million, which is larger than the population of both USA and Brazil combined. And plus, the most of the workforces in India are engineers and doctors, which is a very necessary job that we need today. These jobs are very important in order to succeed in a society today. The literacy rate of India is 74.04%. It is high comparatively to other uneducated and illiterate countries. And by saying this, I would like to say that due to all of these reasons, India is the next Asia's superpower. Thank you.
Now we will have the rebuttal of the first round. Prapti Adhikari will speak in support of China.
I could give you a bunch of reasons why India is not going to be Asia's next superpower. First is border dispute. There are parts of India that don't want to be parts of India, especially in the northeast region and Kashmir. Another reason is corruption. The reason why corruption prevails so much in India is because the most powerful places are shared between families. Another reason is the decline of public institutions such as in universities, police, civil laws, judiciary, low-level judiciary. And there's a very big gap between the higher class and lower class people in India. There are people who have almost everything and absolutely nothing. And another reason is degradation of environment. This is an area in which both China and India need to put in work. Thank you.
My worthy opponent had mentioned that the reason that India wouldn't be a superpower in Asia is because of corruption. But I would like to say that our current Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken an active action and has taken the act of doing the demonetization, which has helped in eradicating the corruption of India, whereas in China, the government as well as the higher officials haven't been taking an efficient or adequate amount of time into thinking of a way of eradicating corruption, whereas India has done its best and has also proven itself by the act that Narendra Modi had done. Thank you.
May I now request both the finalists to come up on the stage? May I request the judges to give their feedback?
The topic is not how great China is or how great India is. For their citizens and their friends, they're definitely great countries. But the topic is which one of these two will become Asia's next superpower. So in the second round, what you both need to bring is a bit of comparative study. So you both spoke for your own countries, but you need to compare. And Prapti, we don't need to compare China with America. We need to compare China with India. And it's not a topic where data and comparisons are very difficult to find. This is a very highly debated and talked about topic in the whole world right now.
I was wondering where the side of cooperation and diplomacy was for the superpower status. So in other words, both of you hit those marks when it came to military, economic power, nuclear weapons, debt. You even went so far as to look at the debt of both countries. But where does the issue of diplomacy come? Where does the issue of, BRAC comes, of being SARC, of UN, and that soft side of diplomacy could have been highlighted a bit more clearly. So just a food for thought for both of you. I thought the rebuttal round was very interesting. Both of you came very well prepared. I wish there would be a bit more of spontaneity. I thought Esther did a wonderful job. You hit, corruption right on the target, which Prapti had talked about. But there were also other things like border disputes and class inequality that she touched on, which is interesting because they apply both to India and China. So what do you do when, your opponent presents cases that applies to your country as well, right? The rebuttal is a time in which you can very smartly address that.
You guys could have focused more on the role of India or China per se in international organizations such as IMF, World Bank, United Nations and so on. These are very concrete examples. I mean, you don't even have to go to statistics like who stands, for example, in particular Security Council of the UN and who doesn't, and who's having more influence in decisions at the UN. I think these are more concrete examples. This is a very debatable issue. Both sides can easily tilt the argument against the other. So right now this is still an open debate. I don't think anyone of us on this panel have been particularly convinced this far that any of the arguments have been particularly compelling.
We will be back with the second round of debate after a short break. Welcome back. You are watching Nepal's Top 7 Debaters. We will begin with the second round of debate. May I request Prapti Adhikari to come up on the stage? She will speak in support of China.
There are a few factors that explain why China has made it further than India into being Asia's next superpower. The first is politics. China has a single-party authoritarian government, which means that the policies made by China are uninterrupted by its government. While in the case of India, even if a slightest disturbance is caused in the democracy, then that totally it reverses the plans and policies of a country. Second is trade. India focuses mainly on self-sufficiency and on domestic consumer sector, whereas China, starting from 1980, it focuses more on international trade. And the third factor is brain drain. China has a supportive policy to send students to study abroad, but then it also has incentives to bring back the best graduates. Whereas meanwhile in India, brain drain is a serious problem. Next is there are separate zones for separate businesses in China. There is a technology zone, there is free trade zone, investment zone. India's tried to replicate this idea, but there has been problem in creating the infrastructures and passing the proposals. Another factor is the non-residential population. China utilizes its 60 million population very wisely because it gives incentives to the non-residential Chinese to come and invest capital in mainland, whereas India has a lack of consistency in governmental policies for non-residential Indians. Thank you.
May I request Esther and Dhakal to come up on the stage? She will speak in support of India.
India has been seeking for a permanent member position in the UN for the past couple of years. And finally, India has been given the opportunity to be a permanent member in the UN, where among the 5 current permanent members, 4 of them have agreed, whereas China has has used its veto power to vote against it, which shows that China is in fear of the capability and the power that India will get and the status of India after it gets its permanent position in the UN. Another is India has been emerging in the science and technology industry than China. From the launching of satellites to all those other IT software that it has made, it has been prevailing, and it has been actively these facilities have been actively used not only by India but also by other countries in Asia, which proves that India is the next superpower of Asia. Another thing is my worthy opponent had mentioned, the politics. The politics in India is fair and just to all the citizens of India, while in China it is, as she has mentioned, that there is discrimination between the castes and border disputes. But in China, in our country, we only have discrimination within castes. But in their country, they discriminate all the citizens of the country, where they strip the rights from these people and do not allow them to exercise even the smallest of rights, such as freedom of expression. We can take the example of Ren Zhiqiang, who is a blogger with 35 million followers, who criticized about President Xi's media visits and got shut down because of this small act of freedom of expression. When a country does this and punishes a person for exercising a small right which should have already been given to these citizens, then how does this country prove itself to be a superpower? Thank you.
Now we will have the rebuttal of the second round. Prapti Adhikari will speak in support of China.
Let us consider why China has been given the veto power in the first place, because it is thought to be worthy of making worldly decisions. And second thing, I don't know from where my opponent got the idea that China is lagging behind in terms of technology. It might not be excellent in the field of IT, but did you know that China has the largest network of high-speed rails in the world, which is larger than the rest of the world combined? It has the most advanced mobile paying system in the world, and it also has the largest online market. And China's government is very sensitive towards the need of people. There has never been a political controversy in the world, political controversy in China. I think I have justified that. Thank you.
It is not that China doesn't have political controversies. It is that China has decided to hide it from its citizens as well as the rest of the world. China is scared that its citizens will react like any other citizen of a normal country when they're aware of their rights and they're aware of what they're supposed to do. So which is why China has decided to censor all those political riots and civil disobedience movements that has taken place, and decided to punish those who are willing to even bring up the topics. China hasn't addressed these issues properly. Instead, they have been ignoring these issues and keeping them low-key so that people won't know more about it. Saying this, I would like to conclude by saying that it is not China, but it is India that is Asia's next superpower. Thank you.
May I now request both the finalists to come up on the stage? May I request the judges to give their feedback?
Everybody has been seeing the headlines about China's the One Road, the One Belt initiative. This is such a major thing that you have missed out, in particular in support of China, Prapti, because this is China's huge attempt to increase their clout in Asia. The specifics were not really taken into account, so I think that hurt your overall argument a little bit. Now for Esther, I think your second round actually started out quite strong. I think you have taken to some extent the feedback that the panel has given during round one. I like the fact that you immediately were on a offensive route against your opponent, directly saying that in fact, India's role in the United Nations is increasing. Perhaps they don't have the same clout as China does now, but the thing is who's becoming the next superpower. We're not necessarily who is the superpower now, but who's on that trend. So I think you argued that, for example, in the Security Council, which is the UN's main power apparatus, actually India enjoys majority of support, but because of one country's veto power, that is China, and India and China not being on the best terms, let's say, on many things. So because of only that one factor, India is not getting a seat on the thing. So I guess that was a good example that you pointed to, because it shows that at least the majority is supporting. So that is a sign of a superpower, that you are getting major international powers to support you in the UN.
I thought there was this interesting play happening between you two on the issue of politics. And I think he also brought that out a little bit, the issue of democracy, human rights, what system of governance is better. So I like that there was a lot of friction, there was a lot of contentious issues that was coming out. I just wish that it could have been linked more to the topic of the debate, which is the status of superpower. What about influence, right? So how are other countries in this Asia region responding to or not responding to both China and India, right? How does the South Asia, the SAARC region respond to India or China? How does the Southeast Asian, the Cambodians and the Indonesians, how do they respond to India and China, right? Are they allies or are they not, right? So that is also another indicator of having the superpower status or not.
I have a feeling like you both did good amount of research. It's just that because of nervousness or time pressure, you were not able to deliver them very well. When you debate on a stage like this one, there's a lot of preparations and capabilities to build up. For Prapti, you're more nervous today, and so you fumbled a lot. You contradicted your own debating points, like the first round you said China is a self-dependent country in terms of economy, but in the second one you say China has major income from exports. So when you are putting out an argument, you need to make sure that you don't contradict yourself. Then you brought up the issues of political controversies. Again, we don't know how that relates to the superpower context. Esther, you countered the political controversy context pretty well. But again, how does that relate to the topic? When you counter your opponent, even if you have a good point to counter, you still have to stick to the topic. So it was a good counter, but then was it a useful counter? Because when you have 1 minute, you have very less amount of time to put forward your points.
The judges are finalizing the marks, and we are eagerly waiting to know who is declared the winner and the runner-up of Nepal's top 7 debaters, category 5, grade 10, 11 and 12 English language. I would like to request our judge, Mr. Santosh Shah, to announce the results.
The first winner of Nepal's top 7 debaters, category 5, grade 10, 11 and 12 English language is Esther in Dhakal. The second winner in Nepal's top 7 debaters, category 5, grade 10, 11 and 12 is Prapti Adhikari.
Congratulations to the winner and the runner-up. May I request our judge, Mr. Tenzing Sonam, to come up on the stage and hand over the certificate to the first winner. May I request our judge, Ms. Sabrina Singh, to come up on the stage and hand over the certificate to the second winner. Leadership Academy conducts 4 competitions annually: Nepal's top 7 debaters, Nepal's top 7 young poets, Nepal Model United Nations and Model SAARC. If you are a student studying in between grade 7 and bachelor's level and are interested to audition for any of the 4 annual competitions, application submissions are now open. To apply, you can call our office at 4257-250 or visit our Facebook page, facebook.com Leadership Academy KTM. We will be back next week with a new episode of Youth TV Show. Until then, hope you have a great week ahead. Namaste.